VocalEye Almost Live Zoom, accessing the Beetlejuicy imagination of Tim Burton, hosted by Amy Amantea, with special guest J.J. Hunt.
Welcome to this VocalEye Almost Live event. My name is Amy Amantea. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Associate Director here at VocalEye. I'm your host for these Almost Live events, and I am a member of the blind community. And it's always a thrill to spend my Wednesdays with you all from the future, so 3 hours and more ahead, and from, I like to say the past, present, and future, because I never know what time zone, but probably not the past, but now and sometimes from Tomorrowland. And I just want to say a big thank you to you all for joining us in this space. You've been supporting us. This is our 5th season doing this. You've written testimonials, you've made contributions and donations, and it's all very, we're very grateful for it. And it doesn't go unnoticed or unappreciated. So if you want to make donations, you can do that through our website. There's also a link that will be posted in the chat. And you can also support us if you happen to be watching our YouTube or at any time by joining our newsletter. You can do that by visiting our website at www.vocaleye.ca, liking and subscribing to this video, following us, tagging us on social media, all of those great things. And I know we have some describers in the house tonight. So if you're interested, we run a professional development space called the Describers Cafe, which is the last Friday of each month. And details of that are on our website. So check out the Describers Cafe because that's a really great place. And we have lots of fun there too. So a reminder, the VocalEye is broadcasting to you all from the traditional and unceded or stolen lands of the Coast Salish peoples, that's the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations in particular. So as I was preparing for my land acknowledgement this evening, I was thinking about Halloween and its connection to Indigenous peoples, and I came across this study. It's kind of a loose study, but this study that these students did, so we're not talking about a big academic study, but they were talking about, these group of student women were talking about the impacts that Halloween has had in terms of dressing up in costumes as, air quotes, Indians. And so I just want to read to you, I'm going to read it verbatim, their experiences, because these are not my words, they are their words. But I want to read to you what they have said. So it says, in quotes, "Indigenous Halloween costumes are offensive to many people, and we hope that our voices can inspire others to think twice about selling, buying, or wearing these costumes." So the first one is from Rebecca. She says, "My name is Rebecca, and I am Algonquin from Ontario, Canada. Stores that sell cheap, overpriced, and provocative replicas of our traditional clothes in the form of costumes not only produce inaccurate depictions of who we are, but also produce the belief that we are more like Halloween characters than we are real people. If non-Indigenous people walk into these stores and come to believe that we are Halloween characters, how are we supposed to be taken seriously as real people? Although it's hard to believe, some people still ignore the fact that Indigenous peoples and a long history of colonization exist in Canada. Turning Indigenous peoples into Halloween costumes is a clear display of this ignorance and shows that people still disregard our voices, our personhood, and the long history of trauma we have endured because of colonization in Canada." And I'll share one more with you. This one is from Dene. "My name is Dene, and I am Cree and Dene from Manitoba. When I was growing up, Indigenous in a primarily white neighborhood, I was exposed to a lot of racism. My friends would mock my culture, and kids would swear at me and call me things like, quote, dirty Indian, quote. These kinds of experiences led me to carry a lot of shame for being Indigenous. When people dress up as, quote, Indians for Halloween, they are ignoring the fact that they are dressing up in an identity and a culture of Indigenous peoples that a culture that Indigenous people have been shamed for. We weren't always allowed to practice our cultures. Many of our people were sent to residential schools where the government tried to, quote, kill the Indian in the child. Quote, dressing up as a, quote, sexy Indian, quote, ignores the fact that thousands of Indigenous girls, women, and Two-Spirit people have been sexually assaulted, gone missing, and been murdered. People who dress up as, quote, sexy Indians are doing a lot more than just wearing a costume. They are contributing to our objectification and sexualization. This ongoing violence against us is not okay. So, some strong words there from some young women who are, I would say, protesting, but they're doing a study with other Indigenous peoples to try and spread the word about why it is not okay to purchase or dress up as or appropriate a costume of an Indigenous person. And I think we all remember the good old days of, quotes, cowboys and Indians and how that's not appropriate. So I offer that in my land acknowledgement because we can see how this does harm to the community. And this is from the mouths of these women who say they want their voices to be heard. And I wanted their voices to be heard in this space. So I want to offer that for this evening as we are one day away from Halloween. Because it's Wednesday night, it's October the 30th, 2024. And tonight in the space, we are offering you our Almost Live event number 163. This one is entitled Accessing the Beetlejuicy Imagination of Tim Burton. And our special guest in the space tonight is Describer Fantastico, JJ Hunt.
I like it.
Fantastico?
I like it.
I was trying to find something other than extraordinaire. So Describer Fantastico.
That's fantastico. I like that.
Fantastico.
I like it. Hi, Amy. How you doing?
How are you tonight, JJ?
I am doing well. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be, doing a deep dive on Tim Burton. It's a wonderful, weird filmmaker. So,
right?
yeah. Happy to be in the space and with lots of juicy stuff to describe and talk about.
Beetlejuicy stuff. I don't have any bugs. I don't have a bowl of bugs standing by as snacks, but do you have a snack? Do you have a Halloween snack?
I do, but like sealed in the box. We are not letting our box of candies be opened until Halloween because if it's opened, I got two teenagers in the house.
And it'll
If
go.
this box is opened, it's gone. It's just, So
it's
none of the Halloween candy actually gets opened until the very first kid rings the doorbell.
Okay.
Yeah. How
And
about
it's
you?
it's a multi-pack, right? So you get all
It's the
stuff.
multi-pack of the mini chocolate bars. So I'm a fan of the coffee crisp.
Ooh, good choice.
Yeah, the Smarties. The thing with the Smarties is everyone knows you've got them. If you put a little thing of Smarties in your pocket, the little clinkety of the Smarties in the little cardboard box gives it away. So I keep a little coffee crisp in my pocket. That's my little treat. How about you? Are you chocolate? You chips? Are you like sweet candy? What's your thing?
I'm more of a savory than I am a sweet typically. We don't get a lot of trick-or-treaters because the house next door, maybe one year I'll get you to describe that. They've got all of the inflatables, but it lines the entire block boulevard because it's just the two houses on our block. And then it goes around the corner to their front entrance and they go up on their roof and whatever. And they're all inflatables.
Wow.
Different colors, all different types of Halloween things. Not super scary because it's mostly kids. There was a time where there were things that were really scary in their yard, but I think they've dialed back on that a little bit. But anytime somebody's driving me home, I'm like, at the end of the Halloween inflatables, that's my driveway. It's a really good beacon home. So we just turn our lights off because nobody wants to come to our recessed house. They want to go to the house that gives away.
They want to go to that one. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So I don't buy Halloween candy. I just buy candy in general. So I have a bag of Sour Patch Kids, which would be my favorite go-to candy. So that's what I got. It's unopened, but it's a bag of Sour Patch Kids.
There you go.
The
you
original
can make it disappear both by eating it quickly or by letting it disappear into
my virtual background, into the slime, disappears into the slime wall. Yes. So that's my go-to Halloween candy.
Very nice.
or any time of year candy, as it were. But you feel better when you buy it at Halloween
Yeah, exactly. Stockpile
because
it.
because
Yeah.
everybody's doing it, right? Um, there we go. So Beetlejuice is out. The old movie is 36 years younger than the new movie. Did you see the both? Have you seen both the movies?
Yes, first one in the theater in the first run, like
Yep.
36 years ago. I was there. Michael Keaton as a kid, and Winona Ryder as a teenager. I went and saw that one, and then I did see Beetlejuice in the theater just a couple weeks ago. So yeah, how about you? Have you seen the new one yet?
Yes, I have. I saw it weeks ago when it first came out because
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Michael Keaton. I probably have seen everything he's done. I'm a
Yeah.
really big fan
Oh
of Michael
yeah.
Keaton, and I'm a big fan of Tim Burton. So we thought this would be a good idea. Like,
Yeah.
I wish we could just play these movies in this space. And I'm sorry, friends, if you thought that's what we were doing, but that's not what we're doing. I wish we had the license to play intellectual property like that in this space. But
Yeah.
we do not. Um, but we thought we'd do a deep dive into the world of Tim Burton because he's wacky and unusual and has a very
Yeah.
kind of specific aesthetic, but then almost sometimes breaks his own aesthetic.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. And he's one of those like filmmakers where they say if you pause any Tim Burton movie at any frame, you'll see that it's a Tim Burton movie. You'll know visually that it's a Tim Burton movie because his aesthetic is so clear. His visuals are so iconic. I mean, and but like you say, he also he moves around a little bit. It's not only one thing, right? Like he
yeah.
does like I mean Edward Scissorhands, Sleepy Hollow,
The
Mars
worlds are very
Attacks.
different. Yeah.
Some of these are sci-fi, some of these are horror, some of these are comic book movies like Batman. And then like one of the greatest holiday movies of all time, Nightmare Before Christmas. Great, really good movies. And a lot of them are available with description. So if you are on Disney Plus, you can find a lot of these movies with description. But of course, the challenge is that, his visuals are so rich, his imagery is so deep, and references so many other things, references his other movies, references B movies, old sci-fi, old
Mhm.
horror, old whatever. We all know this in this space. A challenge for describers is finding time to adequately describe those details. It's virtually impossible. If you've got 2 seconds before Beetlejuice starts running his mouth, there's
Mhm.
no time for the describer to describe his ashen skin with his festering sores, or his wild, frazzled, sickly green hair, or his deep black eye sockets, or his dirty black and white striped tuxedo. And let alone, there's certainly not enough time to describe like the surroundings, his afterlife, the afterlife in Beetlejuice, or maybe the gothic jokes that are hidden in the set design. Like there's no time to do all of that. So that's what
Yeah.
we get to do tonight. We get to kind of
Yeah.
fill in some of those gaps
Yeah.
and describe the Tim Burton aesthetic using some references, using clips, not the whole movies, just
Yeah.
clips from some of those
From
films.
some of those movies, just to get a taste, a sampling of the various different projects he's done and the very different things he brings into his aesthetic.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
I love
So
it.
I'm down for it. You ready for it?
I'm ready. I kind of want to open my candy, but I'm resisting. I'm resisting.
Okay, well, we'll
Resisting.
start. How about this? We'll start with a movie clip, and then
Okay.
you can, and then because it's a clip, it's a movie. I mean, movies and candy go hand in hand. So if you
I know.
wanted to open a candy right away, this movie clip would be the perfect excuse to do so. All
Oh,
right.
JJ, you're a bad influence on me.
So we'll start with a clip from Beetlejuice. And I'm going to describe this in real time, but just to set it up, this scene is our introduction to the character of Delores, who is kind of an antagonist in the film. In this scene, her dismembered body parts tumble out of a series of wooden crates, and she reassembles herself using a staple gun. So this is classic Tim Burton. It is genuinely creepy, but also a little bit funny. It draws on like vintage horror characters, vintage horror imagery, and it's a little bit sexy. The woman who plays Dolores is Monica Bellucci, who is also dating Tim Burton. So there you go. It's got all of that wrapped up in one. So I'm now going to share my screen so that we can do this.
Wow.
And just a little, this is a hilarious little quirky thing about me. I can stand up and talk in front of 1,000 people. Doesn't stress me out at all. If I have to operate
Screen
technology
sharing?
publicly,
Yeah.
oh, my stress level is through the roof. All right. So
So
give me a second here. I will share screen. And
JJ's gonna describe this in the moment. So we were testing this early on, and so he's got to do the screen share in order for his audio to come through on top of the music of this. So if it doesn't work the first time, JJ, I'm gonna just like come in and stop you, and we'll adjust it. But we should have your levels
there we
adjusted.
go. Are you getting my whole screen, or are you getting
No,
my mini
we just
player?
getting your yeah. You want to
Oh my goodness.
take the YouTube video and turn it into full screen. Yeah.
All right. So the wooden crates tumble off a shelf in a blue tinted room. And then the body parts start coming out one at a time. The first body part is a torso. The second body part is just a hand. One hand crawls across the room and pulls a head and shoulder out of a case. The hand then goes into a toolbox and pulls out a staple gun. The woman comes to life, and realizing that her face is in two pieces, she puts one half of her face onto the other half and uses a staple gun to staple her face back together, wincing with an agony that also appears to be quite pleasurable. She smiles, and then an ear wiggles across the floor, jumps into her hand, and she staples that into place as well. Next, she taps on the ground, and her torso comes wiggling toward her, connects to her body, and she staples her torso and her shoulder and headpiece together. Next, the loose hand knocks on a crate, and a leg stumbles across the floor. She attaches both arms onto her body. The legs, she reassembles her legs, and then she kneels down with her legs in front of her, and she attaches her thighs and staples her thighs together. She then lifts up the hem of her black skirt, and one little finger comes crawling out like a worm from underneath the hem of her lace skirt, and she staples that together as well.
Lysol kills 99.9% of germs, including the...
Now we got the commercials from YouTube.
Now we got the commercial. I'm unsharing. Unshare. Stop share.
Stop share.
Stop share. Stop share. See, I told you.
You
I
stop
can speak
sharing.
in front of 1,000 people. Share my screen and I fall apart, Amy.
Yep. Well, the audio came through pretty darn good, which for Zoom has been a challenge since, the pandemic days when we were all trying to figure out how to do this.
Yeah. And suddenly, yeah, there you go. So
Suddenly we can do it a little bit. Yeah.
So that's like such classic Tim Burton, right? The character that is a stitched together, pieced together horror character, a little bit of comedy, a little bit of sexy, and all sorts of references. Yeah. That was probably my favorite scene from Beetlejuice when I saw it in the theater.
Oh yeah, it was a great scene. When you saw it in the theater, did you listen to the audio description?
I didn't have it on. No, was it good?
I don't think it was fine. I got what was going on, but I think you probably crafted it a little nicer.
It's really tricky. Those moments, like you say, if you follow what's going on, right? Like a lot of the times description, especially movies these days that move very, very fast.
They're cut very
Plot
fast.
goes fast. There's so many different actors in a movie like this that all need their screen time, that all need a certain number of lines. It moves very quickly. So that's why we need tonight, so that we can slow it down. Break down those visuals, right? Like what is the Tim Burton aesthetic? That's kind of like my starting point for this. Like, what is the Tim Burton look. It's really a mixture, or like a brew, if you will, if you like, of a few key influences. In the spirit of the season, let's imagine we're concocting the Tim Burton stylistic brew in a cauldron. What would be the first ingredient in our cauldron of Tim Burton aesthetics? It's got to be B movies, right? Monster movies, old sci-fi horror films, movies like 1954's The Creature from the Black Lagoon, Plan 9 from Outer Space from 1959, 1962's The Brain That Wouldn't Die, Frankenstein, Dracula, Nosferatu, The Bride of the Monster, right? These are the movies of Tim Burton's childhood. They're kind of like the base for his stylistic brew. So these
Mm.
movies, what do they have in common? Usually black and white, very dramatic camera angles. So characters shot from below with strange architectural shapes rising up behind them, maybe tilting the camera on its side to make the scene feel kind of precarious, make the audience feel a little bit unsettled. These movies have a real focus on character. The monster is often more important than the plot. And those characters like tromp or lurch or float through dark castles or mad science laboratories, casting long shadows on stone walls lit by flashes of lightning. You see, the budgets for these old movies were super low, so they couldn't afford really flashy, expensive effects teams. So the filmmakers had to be creative and rely on cheap solutions. They had to rely on things like interesting sounds, basic lighting effects like lightning, flash on, flash off. That's lightning, but it's cheap, right?
Yeah.
And they had to rely on the dramatic, exaggerated expressions of the actors. Those were workarounds. They didn't have money. Those were the workarounds, but they were so effective that filmmakers used them again and again and again. And those workarounds became tropes, the tropes that we know today. And even when those B movie filmmakers from the 40s and 50s did splurge, even if they did have some money for special effects, there weren't computer graphics. This was the 40s, right?
Yeah.
So they had to rely on things like simple, jerky stop action animation or miniatures or models and replicas. Those were used. And then when color came in, when color was used in those early sci-fi films, it was really false, like overly bright, unnatural colors, often used to convey like alien technology. That was how color was used. And that's how Tim Burton uses color often, right? These are the movies of Tim Burton's childhood. And he says over and over again in interviews how much he loves these old films. And all of those tropes that I just mentioned, they make their way into his films, even when he has incredible multi-million dollar budgets.
Yeah.
The tropes are the tropes. You still have to go back to those tropes. So the Tim Burton movies where these influences are most prominent would be things like Mars Attacks, Ed Wood, Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands. But honestly, B movies are referenced in everything he does throughout his catalog, in the production design, the pacing, the writing, the sound design, the score. Yeah, B movies are really a huge thing for him. So before we move on to some other ingredients in the Burton brew, let's check out a clip from Ed Wood. So I'll just set this up, Rick. This is from Ed Wood. This is a movie about B movie makers. So like a movie about B movie makers made in the style of a B movie. Very meta. In this scene, the young filmmaker Ed Wood, played by Johnny Depp, is in the living room of a very modest bungalow, sitting on the couch with an aging monster movie star, Bela Lugosi, played by Martin Landau. And Bela Lugosi has these two little chihuahuas sitting on his lap. It's Halloween, and Bela Lugosi is wearing his Dracula costume from his heyday as a monster movie star, and they are watching one of Bela Lugosi's old Dracula movies on TV. Again, you don't get any more meta than this. Tim Burton shot Ed Wood in black and white. This clip's in black and white, just like the original old monster movies. And the living room is packed with old framed photos and paintings. The walls, the windows, the tables are covered in these dusty, decadent layers of draped fabric. And all of the lighting comes from either the TV or these dim lamps and candles around the room. When Dracula makes this slow, creepy spell casting gesture on TV, Bela Lugosi mimics the gesture. So Bela Lugosi mimics his own gesture, and the eerie shadow of his rolling fingers dances across Johnny Depp's face. When Lugosi steps out of the living room to take his medicine, by which he means shoot some heroin, he does so backlit behind a sheer curtain so that we, the audience, are shown his magnified silhouette. And then when Lugosi opens the door for trick-or-treaters near the end of the clip, dressed as Dracula, holding it at his arms with his cape open wide, Burton shoots it from below, from the kid's point of view, just like those dramatic angles in the old monster movies. And then finally, right at the end of the clip, Johnny Depp scares these trick-or-treaters by removing his dentures. And he strikes this totally unnatural pose, smiling as he looks off into the distance, like a bad actor wrapping up a scene in a really cheesy old movie, right? This is Tim Burton deploying a score of monster movie tropes and tricks to pay homage to these early movie makers. So just a warning before we play the clip. Again, that drug use, there is some hair, like it's behind a screen, but he is shooting heroin in this. And there's a bit of crude language about Vampira, who's the host of the TV movie, the movie of the week on TV that they're watching. So Rick, take her away with Ed Wood. Thanks.
The house looks like it has lots of chance.
Ooh, those eyes. He gives me the willies.
Oh, I hate it when she interrupts the picture. She doesn't show him the proper respect.
Charlie from
I think she's a honey.
Talk about the living dead. And then I
Look
tried
at those jugs.
But he stood me up at the restaurant. I guess I shouldn't have picked a steakhouse. And then I went out with the wolf man. Ugh, what an evening. I didn't know whether to kiss him goodnight.
Vampira, you will come under my spell. You will be my slave of love.
My gosh, Bella, how do you do that?
You must be double jointed. And you must be Hungarian. Vampira, look at me. Look into my eye.
You're watching our Halloween movie, White Zombie, starring Bela Lugosi, John Herron, Madge Bellamy, and a bunch of other people I've never heard of.
I'm very tired. I need to take my medicine.
Do you want me to get it for you?
No, thank you, Eddie. I'll be all right.
Feel much better. Children! I love children!
Aren't you scared, little boy? I'm going to drink your blood.
You're not a real vampire. Those teeth don't frighten me.
How about these?
Hey, how'd you do that?
Dentures. Lost my pearlies in the war.
Great clip. And Rick, so smooth. I mean, come on. That you didn't sweat at all, Rick. You just put that on so perfectly. Yeah, such a great like again, like all of those tropes squeezed into one little clip. It's quite amazing. Quite amazing. Have you seen Ed Wood before? Is that a movie you've seen before?
Not
Oh,
seen Ed Wood.
it's a good one. I mean, yeah, lots going on in that film. Not for everyone, but it is a great Tim Burton movie. All right,
I've
so
added it to my list.
it's on the list now. It's on the list, eh? Okay, so the next ingredient in the Tim Burton brew might be Day of the Dead. So this is actually something we've talked about.
Hmm.
Dia de Muertos. We've talked about this on VocalEye before. This is the autumn Mexican celebration that sees families making and decorating altars with the intention of luring deceased family members back from the dead for an all-night party. And there are some very strong visuals that are associated with the annual festivities. The dead themselves are often depicted as skeletons wearing Victorian clothing, so black suits and top hats for men, corseted dresses and wide-brimmed hats for women. But it's not just a black and white holiday. There are incredibly vibrant splashes of color like the orange marigolds that decorate altars or ofrendas, or elaborate makeup or face paint that the women wear, swirls of pink and purples, blues and oranges on cheeks, around the eyes, on foreheads, and along jawlines. So some of the most obvious examples of Day of the Dead influence on Tim Burton would be the character designs in The Nightmare Before Christmas, Frankenweenie, and The Corpse Brides. We've got a photo of The Corpse Bride. This is one of the posters for Corpse Bride. If you've got an opportunity to bring that up, Rick. So yeah, this image, this poster from The Corpse Bride has the bride and groom standing side by side facing us. They're holding hands, with a big full moon behind them, and the whole image is kind of framed in with these kind of blue tinted, gnarly tree roots, tree branches, and whatnot. And the groom, who is on our left, extremely thin. This is something you find in Tim Burton designs a lot. Very, very, very thin characters, and he's wearing this kind of Victorian tuxedo with a cravat and striped pants and tails, and he's got these oversized eyes. And even though he's not he's alive, his face looks very skull-like, large oversized eyes, narrower at the chin. The corpse bride, is on our right, and she's actually got skeletal arms, and is more of a skeleton, although she's kind of curvier than he is. And she's wearing this wedding gown, and again, her makeup, her eye makeup in particular, is very Day of the Dead. These long extended lashes, her cheeks are kind of hollowed out, she's got red lipstick on, these flowers in her hair. This is all very much inspired by the Day of the Dead aesthetic. So
Maybe we
thanks
can
for
get
that, Rick.
Rick to just zoom in on that photo a bit. Some folks may be able to use some partial sight to see close on those
Yeah,
faces.
zoom in on those faces. Thank you. Yeah, so this is very much like, again, like, this isn't an exact rep. He's not drawing a Day of the Dead image here. This isn't a Day
Yeah,
of the Dead picture, but this is an influence, right?
an influence. Yeah.
That's where he pulls a lot of this. Okay, so we've got B movies, we've got Day of the Dead. Another key ingredient would be the gothic sensibility. So when I say gothic, I'm talking tone as well as visual style. So Tim Burton loves to explore things like death and the macabre, and he delights in like weird and tortured heroes. So visually, gothic imagery is packed with ornate details. Think of like a Gothic church, right? Layers and layers of ornate carvings around windows and arches, gargoyles, spires, intricate stained glass windows. The Gothic imagery in the Burton Brew floats to the top in movies like Sleepy Hollow, Batman. We'll talk about Batman a bit later. Dark Shadows, and strangely, even Dumbo. You can find some of this Gothic imagery in Dumbo. Okay, so you can take that image down now, Rick. Thank you very much. So we got B movies, Day of the Dead, Gothic sensibility. No Halloween brew is complete without a hair plucked from the witch or warlock who wants to cast a spell. So the last ingredient in our Tim Burton brew would be his very own lived experiences. Tim Burton grew up in sunny Burbank, California in the 1960s. This was the land of new suburbs, perfect green lawns, planted palm trees. But as a kid, Tim Burton was moody. He had these macabre tastes. And in many interviews, he talks about feeling really left out. He felt out of place in this town that he thought of as being really chipper, superficial, plasticky. So he hung out at the local cemetery, right? He went to the wax museums. He loved to draw monsters and these kooky, creepy characters. So I found a black and white photo of a Halloween costume that Tim Burton designed as a kid and had his mom help him build. So if you could pull up the Halloween costume for us, Rick. This is a skeleton costume, very Tim Burton. Young Tim Burton is completely covered by this skeleton costume. He's inside this costume. It's a long sleeve black turtleneck and black pants with straight white lines. It looks like they're tape. I'm guessing like strips of like white hockey tape or something, representing the bones in his body. So these are very stylized straight white lines representing bones. It's a little bit odd, a little bit creepy, as is the large, oversized head on this skeleton. So young Timmy Burton hides his actual head inside the costume's unrolled turtleneck. So he turns his head into a lumpy, elongated skeleton neck. And sitting on top of that is this round white ball wearing a top hat. And the face is just made with black shapes, like a triangle for the nose, circle for the eyes. The head and face looks like a gothic snowman, but the body is this stylized skeleton. This is not a typical 1960s sunny California suburban Halloween costume. This is weird. And it's also like, I can look at this and I can see the Tim Burton movies from from the 90s, from now, in this costume that he designed as a kid. Thanks, Rick, for that's great. Yeah, so just to wrap up this kind of topic of key influences, let's end with a short clip from Edward Scissorhands. So again, for those who aren't familiar with the movie, Edward is played by young and very beautiful Johnny Depp. He's a young man who was created by a mad scientist, Vincent Price, living in a dark castle atop a hill just outside a 1950s suburb. He's like a handsome goth teen Frankenstein's monster. He wears all black leather adorned with like buckles and straps and metal studs. His hair sticks up in all directions, and as his name implies, his hands are made of scissors. So his pale ashen face is covered in these fine healed over scars from all the times he cut himself with his scissor hands. In this scene, he's being welcomed into the suburban home of a neighbor, an Avon lady played by Diane Weiss. She wears a mauve skirt suit with a matching pillbox hat. And the living room that she welcomes Edward into is this vast and spacious, very clean living room, broadloom carpeting, a floral patterned couch, wood veneer bookshelf. But the ceiling is on a sharp angle, which is oddly discombobulating. And Edward becomes fascinated with some framed photos on a bookshelf of a teenage girl, Kim. This is young Winona Ryder wearing a long strawberry blonde wig. And in her prom photo, which is on display, she wears a long pastel pink dress, and her boyfriend is in a seafoam tuxedo. Again, classic Tim Burton. Horror meets suburb. A strange gothic black and white kid entering the pastel-colored burbs. So if we can...
before you play it, talk about the size of the scissors on his hands.
Oh, they're huge. These are like shears. Yeah, these are not like tiny little fingernail scissors. These are like 6 or 8 inch long scissors, incredibly like like Wolverine claws, but they snip back and forth whenever he moves his hands, and they're
and it's like each finger is like a blade of a scissor, right? Each finger.
Yeah, some of them are multiples even.
Yeah.
Like they it's not like he's got one pair of scissors on each hand. Each finger is a blade or a pair of scissors. There are the loops for your fingers to go into that are sticking out all over the place. They don't make any sense, but they look terrifyingly uncomfortable and dangerous for
Yeah.
sure.
All right, I'm ready. It's also one of my favorite movies.
This is the living room, and back here are the bedrooms. You want to see the pictures? All right. Well, this is my husband, Bill. He's a bowling champion. Do you know what bowling is? No, bowling? No, well, here they are down at the lake fishing. I think Kevin looks a little glum because they didn't catch anything that day. And here's my daughter, Kim, all dressed for the junior prom. She's a senior now, if you can believe it. She's camping in the mountains with some friends, but she'll be back in a few days and you can meet her then. Isn't she beautiful? It's my family. Now, come along, dear, and I'll show you the rest of the house. Then you can just freshen up and make yourself at home. Okay, that's the kitchen over there. You help yourself to anything you want to eat or drink, and those are grapes. And back here are the bedrooms. Let me get you some towels, and I'll see what we can find for you to wear.
One of your favorites, is it, Amy?
Yeah. One of the things I like about this type of style is the juxtaposition of Edward Scissorhands looking scary and creepy, but he's soft and gentle.
Yeah.
And misunderstood and all of those things.
That's right. So you can imagine young Tim Burton feeling out of place and not anywhere near at home in this land that he was in sunny Burbank suburbs. Yeah, I'm sure he probably didn't feel quite as beautiful as Johnny Depp looks, because that young Johnny Depp, he's a hunky young guy, isn't he?
No kidding. And also the fact that Tim Burton tends to reuse people in his films that he likes working with, I guess.
Yeah,
because we know that Johnny Depp's been in a ton of Tim Burton films. Winona Ryder's been repeated, obviously.
Helena
Michael
Bonham
Keaton.
Carter.
Helena Bonham Carter.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. You see a lot of these guys over and over again. I mean, some directors are like that. Wes Anderson, similarly, actually, a filmmaker with an aesthetic and a preference for certain actors. He uses those guys over and over again as well.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some characters, right? Let's talk about some of our favorite Halloween-y Tim Burton characters. We've already managed to squeeze in descriptions of Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands. Why don't we do the Nightmare Before Christmas crew? Because these guys are great. So Rick, this is photo number 4. The Nightmare Before Christmas, a stop motion animated film from 1993. Actually not directed by Tim Burton, because I don't think he had worked in animation before at that point, not for a feature film, but the concept, Tim Burton, the story, Tim Burton, all the character design, all Tim Burton. So it is still very much a Tim Burton film. So the 3 lead characters, the 3 mains, are Jack Skellington, the Pumpkin King, Sally, a rag doll who's sewn together by a mad scientist, and Oogie Boogie, the villainous boogeyman of Halloween Town. So this image that we've got on screen now has all 3 of those characters in it, as well as the ghost dog that's floating around behind them. So Jack Skellington, again, incredibly tall and skinny, legs and arms as thin as pencils. The torso widens to the shoulders, and he has a skull for a head, bones for fingers. But most of his body is clad in this very tight-fitting pinstripe tuxedo with tails and a bat wing collar. This is the Halloween costume of choice for very tall, skinny people. It works perfectly. Sally is a rag doll, all sewn together with black stitching on her pale white fabric skin. She's lean, though not skinny like Jack. She's got long red hair, large, wide, expressive eyes with long lashes, and she wears a patchwork dress that's as stitched together as her own body is. Again, this idea of the stitched together character. It
Like
is both,
stapled.
yes, stapled together, stitched together. Johnny Depp is a pieced together character. Frankenweenie, the Catwoman, whose her suit is sewn together in the
Yep.
same way. I mean, this is a monster movie trope, but Tim Burton is clearly fascinated by this. The idea of the creator, puppet, and puppet master, the stitched together hero, or mostly, let's be honest, mostly stitched together heroine. I'm going to let Tim Burton's therapist work out the details, but there's clearly something going on here. You should talk to someone about this. And then there's Oogie Boogie. So Oogie Boogie is a walking, talking burlap sack full of bugs. He has a big, bulbous body with these tiny, stubby legs and arms. His burlap sack of a head has a huge, floppy opening for the mouth and dark holes with these arched brow-like openings for the eyes. And the top of his head comes to a floppy point like an old-fashioned nightcap. And the character is voiced by Ken Page, who is a middle-aged black man with this incredible booming voice. And I bring up the fact that he's a black man because it should be said that Tim Burton has received a fair amount of criticism for having very, very white casts. I think this is the only person of color I'm going to be describing at all tonight. And if only one of your characters is portrayed by a person of color and that person is a villain and has a name Oogie Boogie that has in the past been used as a racist derogatory term, that is noticed. That is noticed by the community and worth commenting on. So yeah, I did want to throw that out there. So that's the cast. Did you have any other favorite characters from The Nightmare Before Christmas, Amy?
No. I mean, I think Sally is my favorite. I do have a soft spot for Jack only because of the actor that voices him.
Oh, yeah.
Because of The Princess Bride.
Oh, yeah. There you go. If anything can come back to The Princess Bride at any moment, that's all right by me. I'm good with that. All right, so then let's talk about the Martians from Mars Attacks. So this is photo number 5. Mars Attacks was a live-action movie, mostly live actors, but the Martians were computer animated. They were digitally rendered. And having fully CGI characters was fairly impressive at the time. Think like Little Green Men from like the 1930s, 40s, and 50s comic books and sci-fi movies. That have then been given like the 1990s Tim Burton treatment, right? They have little bodies with mostly human proportions. They're about 4 feet tall, but their heads are skulls and they have bulging eyeballs and kind of giant exposed brains. They have to wear these glass domes over their heads when they're on Earth. And they wear these like really snug green spacesuits, and they have red tanks on their back, like scuba tanks, presumably filled with Martian air. So we'll just play a little bit of a clip of this scene when they have arrived on Earth and they're kind of being introduced to humans for the first time. So all around the world, people are on the edges of their seats watching the live TV broadcast, waiting to see how it goes. This meeting takes place in the middle of the desert. The military has surrounded the Martian's steel gray flying saucer, which sits atop retractable spider legs. And the Martian leader has walked down a red carpet and is exchanging a greeting with an American general. The Martian's language is being translated by a scientist's very rudimentary 1950s translation equipment and played over loudspeakers for the crowd to hear. But when a long-haired onlooker is just swept up by the moment, he releases a dove of peace, and the Martians misunderstand it and shoot that dove with their laser guns. chaos ensues. They zap the general, disintegrating him. The gathered onlookers flee. Tanks open fire. The grandstands are destroyed. It's absolute chaos. So let's play that clip now.
We come in peace. We come in peace. We come in peace. We come in peace. They came in peace. We come in peace. We come in peace.
Whoa.
Tons of actors you might not have known are in that movie. Like you forget it was such a star-studded cast. In that little clip, Jack Black, Jack Nicholson, Pierce Brosnan, Sarah Jessica Parker, who else? They were just flying by. Yeah, an incredible cast in that very wacky movie. Is that one you've seen before, Amy?
No, haven't seen that one either.
It's a good weird
In fact,
one.
I don't think I even knew that was a Tim Burton one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He's got all kinds of strange movies under his belt.
Yeah.
All right, finally, let's take a look at two literary characters that Tim Burton and his design team kind of interpreted for their own movies, like Willy Wonka, and then we'll look at the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland.
Mm-hmm.
So Willy Wonka, this is photo number 6. Again, played by Johnny Depp. He's got pale, light skin tone. He's got a brown bob haircut that kind of curls under below his ears. The makeup department clearly did some highlighting on his cheekbones and subtly hollowed his cheeks to give his face a very distinctive shape. They also painted his lips red. And that, combined with a very exaggerated speaking style, really draws attention to Johnny Depp's perfect set of very large white teeth. I don't know if he had caps on or something for this movie, or if it was just a speaking style.
I think he also had prosthetics in his face
to kind of pump it out a little bit.
I think so.
Yeah, it's really an interesting like they do manage to change the shape of his face quite a bit in this character.
Yeah, it's like putting false cheeks over top of your skin in the cheek area, for example, and then putting a fake layer of skin and then putting makeup on top of it. This is the stuff they talk about being like in the chair for 3 hours makeup, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And for costuming, Tim Burton's Willy Wonka usually wears like a dark top hat that has gentle, kind of playful curves, and wears a dark velvety overcoat that, depending on the lighting, can appear either red or purple or burgundy. So it changes a little bit with the lighting. And then let's look at the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland. This is a character played by Helena Bonham Carter. Again, a collaborator who works with Tim Burton a lot. So for this movie, Tim Burton shot everything live with real actors and then fed it all into the computer and used digital effects to turn them into fantasy characters in a really fantastic world. The Queen of Hearts is a great example of this. The character is the same height as most of the residents of Wonderland. In the image we have on screen, she's dealing with her frogs, who are like bellhops and servants and whatnot. They're quite a bit smaller, but She's as tall, the queen is as tall as most other human characters in her world, but her head is huge. Her head is way larger, disproportionately large. And they did that digitally, but they also used the hair and makeup design to emphasize that. So her large face is painted white, and she has this wig of vibrant red curls that are kind of blown back off her face. So, like, picture Ronald McDonald in a wind tunnel, right? Above her eyes, she has huge wedges of like powder blue eyeshadow that stop at this pencil thin brow that's halfway up her forehead. And her red lipstick is painted into this small, plump little heart shape directly under her nose, which kind of gives her a permanent pucker. She wears a black, red, and gold corseted gown with hearts on her skirt, and she's got a small gold crown perched atop her red hair, which creates a little dent at the top of her curls. And of course, that gives her head a bit of a heart shape, which is everything about this character is hearts. Yeah. So
Didn't
that's
know they said I didn't know that they shot it with like the real actors in like in real life, and then they turned it into what a feat
yeah.
that is.
It basically digitized all the characters so they could tweak it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not how Tim Burton usually works, because he tends to like his special effects pretty practical.
Yeah.
But this it worked really well for this very kind of fantasy kind of world of his. Is this
Yeah.
one you've seen? Has this been on your?
No, I haven't seen this one either.
Man, Amy, you're gonna have a big list now.
I'm more attracted to the gothic stuff.
All right. If you're attracted, then for you, Amy, let's talk Gothic worlds, okay?
Yeah.
All right, Rick. Thanks. You can take that one down now. Appreciate it. Yeah. So Tim Burton has a real talent for creating worlds, right? World building is a big part of the Tim Burton experience. You know when you're watching a Tim Burton movie that you're in a slightly different world because it's just a little bit skewed, right? Some things are the same, but everything's a little bit tweaked, a little bit different. Again, this is the kind of thing that describers only get to hint at when we're describing during a movie. We rarely get the opportunity to describe it in detail. So I thought this is an opportunity to zoom in on a few of those worlds to give you a sense of the visuals that surround the main action of Tim Burton movies. So we'll start with Gotham. So yeah, this is from Batman 1989, hot on the heels from his success with the first Beetlejuice movie. Tim Burton was hired to direct Batman. This was kind of like the superhero movie that launched or relaunched the modern superhero genre. Michael Keaton as Batman, Kim Basinger as Vicky Vale, Jack Nicholson as the Joker. And I mean, all of this is a perfect fit for Tim Burton, right? It's a comic book movie, which is kind of weird and kind of fun, great characters, but dark. Like, this is not Captain America. The Batman and the Joker have very, very dark stories. Parents are murdered, faces burned by acid. Like, this is dark stuff. And Batman, of course, lives in Gotham City, as in Gothic City. So let's bring up photo number 8 of Gotham. Thanks, Rick. This is a still frame from the movie. We are peering down a long Gotham street that just recedes into the distance. This is a Gotham City at night. There are buildings to our right and left that completely block out the night sky. Everything's grimy. It's a little bit like damp, and it's packed with cars and people. Remember our earlier mentions of Gothic, like Gothic cathedrals, right? We talked about layers and layers of ornate carvings around windows and arches, gargoyles, spires, intricate stained glass windows. That's for cathedrals. When Burton and his design team created a city for Batman and his villains, what he did was he took the Gothic design aesthetic and translated it into an urban setting. So gray stone cathedral walls become gray concrete office towers. The layers of ornate carvings become layers of scaffolding and fire escapes and exposed pipes. And just like the way old cathedrals look more Gothic when they get older and dirtier, Tim Burton's version of Gotham City looks more Gothic because of its decay. And it's actually that urban decay that I think is the real brilliance of Tim Burton's Gotham. Some directors, some design teams would read a story like Batman about a superhero in a city overrun with crime, and they would design a dirty, grimy city. But that version of the story misses the idea of the decline, right? The decay, the fall from grace. Gotham was a grand city. It was beautiful. It had imposing, ornate buildings, but the city is in serious decline because crime is out of control. So behind the grime and decay of this Gotham, it is like there are hints of former grandeur. There are stained glass windows. If you can kind of peer through the grime, oh yeah, I can see some nice arched windows in here. There's some ironwork in these buildings that isn't just about like the underside of an overhead bridge or something like that. It's beautiful beautiful metal work. So not only does that make the visuals more stunning, but that kind of attention to detail really helps tell the story too.
And you can get the sense of like what it sounds like with all the car horns honking and people shuffling from here and there and people yelling at each other in the streets and because the world is chaos. People are fighting for every meal, for every buck. There's the have and the have-nots, but the haves are. Totally. Oh my gosh, this is the future, JJ.
That's right. Gotham is our future. Are you going to be Batman or is that? Do I have to? No, you can take on the Batman mantle, right?
Yeah. Yes, I've got my Batmobile parked in my garage. Actually.
Oh, excellent, perfect. All right, another world that Tim Burton created is the Nightmare Before Christmas. So we can get this picture down now for just a minute there, Rick. Thank you. So for the Nightmare Before Christmas world, Tim Burton and his design team had to translate our collective understanding of Halloween, how it feels, how we remember it from our childhood, all the tropes, the characters, the decorations, and use all of that to create a town. In Tim Burton's Halloween Town, literally every element must be either scary or spooky in a gleeful, thrilling way. So it's almost always night. It's always dark in Halloween Town. Dry leaves are always blowing in the wind.
We have a photo of this one, JJ?
We don't.
Okay. This is a clip.
Because we're going to use a clip, and we're going to hold the clip for the end because it's the perfect clip to end our night on.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So we'll just have to use my voice for this one. Jack-o'-lanterns with gnarly grins line every step in Halloween Town, just like they did when you were a kid trick-or-treating. The cemetery and the streets in Halloween Town are indistinguishable, like neighborhoods with fake tombstones on their front lawns, right? And everyone in Halloween is a character. Just like on Halloween night when you would go trick-or-treating and everyone on the street was dressed in a character's costume. And of course, all of this is done in Tim Burton's classic style. Characters with long, skinny limbs, tiny heads on big bodies or big heads on tiny bodies, lots of dark shadows, odd camera angles. And it's all done in stop motion animation, right? Meaning everything's got that slightly jerky movement to it, a little bit unnatural, a little bit unnerving. And yeah, we do have a clip of that, but we're going to save it for the very end because it's the perfect clip to end the night on. So the last kind of world that we'll talk about is the Beetlejuice afterlife. Sometimes people call it the netherworld. It's important to remember with Beetlejuice that Beetlejuice and the sequel are comedies, right? So for Tim Burton and his team, the designs have to be spooky. They have to be creepy, but they also have to be of service to the comic elements of the story. So for the afterlife in Beetlejuice, where people go after they die, they needed to find comedy in death. And one of the ways they do this is by mimicking and mocking life. So the afterlife in Beetlejuice is basically the same as life, but slightly shifted, seen in a different light or through a different lens. and I don't mean to use those as like ableist metaphors. I mean those literally. The afterlife is often shot with a camera slightly askew to make everything off kilter. So sometimes they'll do this like carnival funhouse trick to create optical illusions. It messes with you. So like they'll make a door in the foreground really tiny, and then a door in the background is oversized. And that's the opposite of how our brain understands perspective. Our brains understand that things that are close should be larger and things that are far away should be small. So if you're in the Beetlejuice afterlife and a person walks from a large distant door to a small nearby door, our brain gets kind of confused. It's like this fun house or haunted house effect. And in the Beetlejuice afterlife, lighting is tinted. So the camera will get a little bit hazy, and there's greens or blues or purple or red lighting, maybe a little bit of spooky haze or mist on the scene. Visually, these things register as otherworldly, right? And one of the most famous and delightful elements of the Beetlejuice afterlife are the inhabitants, the people who are living there, right? What could be more hilarious and yet terrifying than making characters live out their afterlife in the bodies that they were living in at the moment of their death? So if you're shot, the bullet hole in your clothes and in your body stays with you forever. Right? This is the afterlife, the waiting room. Everyone loves the waiting room scenes. So, for example, some real examples from the Beetlejuice afterlife waiting rooms, and we've seen a couple of them now in the two different movies. A man run over by a car will have to go through his overlife as a flat person with tire treads pressed into his flesh and asphalt ground into his clothes. So grim. You can barely get through a door frame because he's so flat and like he's smushed and squished out. He's gonna like tip himself. Oh, it's so grim. Yeah. There's a magician's assistant who clearly was cut in half by a terrible magician. So she has two halves to her body. The top half of her is in a pretty red dress, and that's separated from her legs in their silk stockings. And then there's a man who choked to death at a seafood restaurant. So he forever has to wear his lobster bib with a lobster claw clearly wedged in his throat. Oh, so we got a photo here. This is photo number 9 from the most recent Beetlejuice. In this image, it's a green tinted image from the afterlife waiting room. So here, Beetlejuice is sitting on a couch. And he's flanked by two different people. He's staring directly at us with this expression on his face that, you know, if I was going to sonify the expression on his face, I'd be like, huh? Like he's looking directly at us.
Here I am again.
Yeah, what am I doing here, right? So to one side of him is a middle-aged lady in this ratty old house coat, her hair in curlers, and she's being eaten by several cats. What a grim death. Like a cat lady eaten by her cats is so grim. And then on the other side of Tim Burton, the other side of Beetlejuice is a young man wearing a t-shirt that's got the slogan and an image from a hot dog eating contest on it. And his mouth is just jam-packed with hot dogs. He clearly died while participating in a hot dog eating contest. I mean, fantastic. Yeah, these are the kinds of worlds that Tim Burton builds. His design, I mean, what a design team, eh? Like,
yeah.
Oh.
And I'm sure that both of those deaths have happened in real life. Mm-hmm. And so I wonder how like, you know, how you scour the internet for the most unusual deaths and then try and sort of, I don't want to say make fun of them, but that's what this is. This is like a caricature.
That's it.
Of what it is. Because it's, you look at it and you're supposed to go, that's funny, not like, oh my gosh, I'm horrified by that. But the idea of it is like creepy.
That's right.
But the imagery of it is like, oh my gosh, that's kind of funny.
It's a great little, like, I'm with you. Like, how do they do that? Do they write down absurd lists of ways to die? Do they scour the internet? I bet they've got dozens and dozens of dozens that they don't use in these movies.
For sure.
Yeah. So
and
good.
In the original description of this movie, they don't tell me that because there's not enough time. So I didn't know.
Oh, see,
especially like the hot dog eating contest with the stuff on the shirt. Had no idea.
Yeah.
So that's the fun of that.
Yeah, it does drive you crazy. You know, I know we've got describers in the room. It drives you crazy when you
Yeah.
know there's a gag I totally want to tell you.
Yeah.
Like I want to share this information, and there's no time. There's barely enough time to say he walks in the room in some of these
Yeah.
things.
And I didn't know about the from the first movie. I think it's the first movie where the guy dies from eating the seafood, the lobster. That's in the first
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
I didn't know about that either because I think when the first time I saw that movie, I was probably young enough that the reference was lost on me.
Yeah.
And then when I rewatched it as an adult, didn't have my sight then, so it was it would have been too detailed for me to have made that out.
Yeah.
So and too fast, you know, for me to
Oh,
have figured
yeah.
that out. So
Totally.
yeah, okay. Well, I know that these are available with description, so
Yeah,
not that I
yeah.
would get that detail, but at least
Well, now hopefully you can go back, rewatch some of these things and have a, you know, a deeper understanding, and you can extrapolate. That's the
yeah.
other thing we hope to do with these deep dives, right? Is provide some of this information. We're still not filling in all of the gaps, but
No,
hopefully this gives a
but you get
little
it.
bit
Yeah.
of, yeah, of content that you can extrapolate on.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So the
Um,
other thing I did want to talk about was music.
mhm.
This is a really important element of a Tim Burton film. You know, we've just spent the last hour talking about the visuals of Tim Burton, the creepy, spooky, dramatic, wild, sometimes goofy visuals. This is a filmmaker with a penchant for monster movies, gothic imagery. The thing with a Tim Burton film is you can't slap any old soundtrack on one of his films and make it work. The visuals are just too distinctive. They're too weird. So you have to get a composer. You got to get music that works with it. Enter the equally weird Danny Elfman. He's the composer and musician and singer that Tim Burton works with a lot. I would suggest that like Danny Elfman has managed to sonify the look of Tim Burton. I think he's done a really good job of movie after movie of taking these images, these ideas, and turning them into music. His scores managed to create music out of that visual aesthetic. So I picked out a few pieces we could listen to. These are YouTube clips, but they're mostly just musical pieces. So the first one is an orchestral version of just the first few minutes of Danny Elfman's Batman suite. So this is music from Batman and Batman Returns. The video just has is of the orchestra, so it's primarily the full orchestra backed by a choir. Everyone's in black tuxedos, gowns. There's a screen at the back of the orchestra stage showing concept art sketched by Burton, but it's really about the orchestra. So if we can play that one, Rick.
Yeah, one of my the minute that starts gets my hair standing up on my arms.
Yeah, you recognize it instantly. That
Yep.
dark, it's really dark and brooding and gloomy, but then heroic. like
Yeah.
really like masterful.
Yeah.
Uh,
Phoenix
yeah,
rising from the ashes, all that. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, he's got all of that in there. So good. And then he can also do something like Mars Attacks, which is quite different tonally. So again, Mars Attacks, this is an homage to old sci-fi movies, but it's a big budget 1990s movie with all those movie stars we talked about. What I love about the music for this film is that it uses the most B movie instrument of all time, kind of tucked into the orchestra, the theremin. Do you know the theremin? I mean, you'll recognize the sound of a theremin. This isn't an electronic instrument that musicians you don't touch it. You wave your hands over a couple of antennae and you manipulate the frequency and the amplitude of the electric signals with the presence of your hands. It's that really eerie wavering sound. Yeah, that's the theremin. So you got to listen for it a little bit in here. Classic old sci-fi, and so Elfman manages to find a way to sneak that in there too. So this is a clip. Again, this is just the audio. The only image on screen is a single image of Tim Burton's sketch of one of these aliens from his early concept art.
Awesome.
Such fun.
Yeah.
And I love that there's the you've got that theremin that can woo, like nothing says like creepy sci-fi like a theremin. Woo, but you've also got that march. Like this is Mars is attacking, right? They're coming for us. So you've got that marching element to it, which really drives home that kind of invasion, which I really liked. Yeah.
But there's still, I mean, we know there's only so many notes that can be used, right? This gets talked about a lot in terms of intellectual property, when other people are writing songs and they're like, well, that song sounds like so-and-so's song, and so-and-so tries to sue so-and-so, and it's like, well, there's really only so many note combinations you can
only
put
so many
together.
Phrasings, only so many
but you can hear some of those things in there. I go, oh, that sounds like a little piece of this song, this music that they played, and a little piece of that, and because it's all sort of written for Tim Burton stuff, I don't think there's any encroachment on, it's all,
That's right.
Kind of like it's done on purpose almost. And perhaps it is, right?
For sure. Well, and you're also, if you are a filmmaker like Tim Burton, you are constantly referencing other movies.
Yeah.
And so specifically and in general, like you're referencing other genres. So to have those nods to other films, to have those little earworms, those little things in there.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of it is intentional, and even when it's not specifically trying to link to another movie, another film, another whatever, just the idea that you would be thinking about other projects, other movies, other genres, I think they would love that. Like that's all good. That's all good if you're Danny Elfman or if you're Tim Burton, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
All right, so we cap off the night. We ready?
We're ready.
This is Halloween. So this is the scene in The Nightmare Before Christmas where we're introduced to Halloween Town. So we already described the general look of Halloween Town. I won't go into too much detail. Just know that in this clip, we kind of float through the dark, haunted town. It starts off largely black and white with a few oranges and reds, and then eventually more colors slowly added in. And the song is sung by all the residents of Halloween Town. So the vampires get a line, the witches get a line, the werewolves, the shadows, ghouls, monsters, ghosts. Every creepy character that Burton could conjure up is in Halloween Town. And then at the end of the clip, a burning scarecrow with a jack-o'-lantern head is paraded through town. This scarecrow is on fire. He jumps into a sickly green pool of water in the fountain at the center of the town. And then when the scarecrow body rises up out of the water, it is transformed into Jack Skellington, the Pumpkin King, with the look that I described earlier on. So this is this is our final song of the night. This is Halloween with Jack the Pumpkin King.
Awesome.
See something strange. Come with us and you will see. This our town of Halloween. This is Halloween. This is Halloween. Pumpkins scream in the dead of night. This is Halloween. Everybody make a scene. Trick or treat. Tell the neighbors gonna die of fright. It's our town. Everybody scream. This town of Halloween.
I am the one hiding under your bed. Teeth ground sharp and eyes glowing red.
I am the one hiding under your stairs. Fingers like snakes and spiders in my hair.
This is Halloween. This is Halloween. 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 In this town we call home. Everyone hail to the pumpkin song.
In this town, don't we love it now? Everybody's waiting for the next surprise.
Down that corner run, hiding in the trash can. Something's waiting on a punch and pound.
Hooray, this is Halloween. Red and black.
It's slimy green.
Aren't you scared?
Well, that's just fine. Say it once, say it twice. Take a chance and roll the dice. Ride with the moon in the dead of night.
Everybody scream! Everybody scream!
In our town of Halloween.
I am the clown with the tearaway face.
Here in a flash and gonna then trace.
I am the who and you call who's there. I am the wind blowing through your hair.
I am the shadow on the moon at night, filling your dreams to the brim with fright.
This is Halloween. This is Halloween. 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 Halloween.
Tender rumblings everywhere. Life's no fun without a good scare.
That's our job.
But we're not mean
in our town of Halloween.
In this town, don't we love it now? Everyone's waiting for the next surprise.
Skeleton Jack might catch you in the back and
Scream like a banshee, make you jump
out of your skin. This is Halloween. Everybody scream.
Won't you please make way for a very special guy?
One man Jack is king of the pumpkin patch. Everyone hail
pumpkin song.
Yep.
Such a good
Again,
movie.
one of my favorites. And Jack Skellington is another one of those characters, just like Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. He
He doesn't want to
be,
scare people anymore. He doesn't want to be in
No.
Halloween Town, and he goes looking for Christmas, and it's happy, and it's well, he falls upon Christmas,
That's right. That's
happy,
right.
and it's joyful, and it's so he wants to try something new.
Yeah, I'm telling you, he's got some stuff to work out. Our Tim Burton does. He's got
Yeah.
some, yeah. He brings his childhood. He brings his how he feels about his place in the world into all of these movies. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just like skimming the surface. I mean, it's a deep dive, but there's a ton of other things we could add.
Oh, there are I only referenced maybe half of I chose specifically the most Halloweeny films from the Tim
Yeah.
Burton collection, but twice as many films exist. And it's a deep dive, but like you say, it's also skimming the surface, right? There's so much. The visuals in his films are so rich, and yeah, in like I said, any frame you could stop and probably describe for 5 minutes, just because of all the details in the background or whatever. Yeah, he's that kind of filmmaker, that kind of visual filmmaker for sure.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons why I like these deep dives. Again, you've said it a couple of different times, which is that describers don't get an opportunity in film to be able to add so much detail add as much detail as they would like to. So I appreciate when you get to come and do these things, because it's helpful to be able to understand the aesthetics and the world building and
Yeah.
where we are and those kinds of things. I find that helpful. So next time I watch a Tim Burton film, I'll be thinking about it with different context in mind.
Awesome. Well, and I love that you guys are like, you get that. Like VocalEye gets that, and wants to break these things down, because you guys have a real understanding of what it takes to describe and what is needed from that description and what's missing from both. So having this space where we can all talk about it and fill in some of those gaps, it's an amazing luxury. So thank you again for having me on to do this again, because it's an opportunity that is rarely presented anywhere else.
Well, I know that there are groups of folks that are working on, I don't want to say petitioning, but like sharing with streaming platforms the importance of perhaps having a separate audio file that goes into some of the depth that you're talking about. Because it's really easy on a streaming platform to have a separate, 20-minute video or whatever talking about these things or whatever it is. And it's going to take folks in the blind community sending letters. It's going to take describers sending letters. And like, I think if we keep doing that to Disney Plus and to Netflix and to all of those big name, places, that this is what we need by live describers and not AI describers or, synthetic voice describers, that we might see a bit of traction.
Yeah.
Because it really shouldn't be that difficult.
Oh,
Really
no,
shouldn't.
I have literally pitched every single streaming service since pre-pandemic times. I've been pitching these outfits to do this. It can be done. It should be done.
Yeah.
Every IP, especially every IP that's rich in visuals, which is almost everything these days, we should have deep dives on all of these character breakdowns, world building breakdowns, understanding of the aesthetics of the film and the context. The context is
huge.
Oh, it's everything, right? Yeah. So I'm really happy, and especially this time of year, it's also fun. It's Halloween to be able to dive into this stuff. This is a joy.
Yeah, this is a joy. Well, I know that we want to have some time for folks to ask maybe some questions if they have questions about any other Tim Burton films or what they experienced here tonight. So folks, JJ is here to have a chat with you if you want to have a chat with him. I encourage you to use the raise your hand function if you can do that, just because it's more accessible. But if you use the chat, I'm sure JJ will read that since I don't have that activated on my end. But in the meantime, we'll just chat for a little bit, JJ. Maybe some folks will get some thoughts in their mind as we're chatting for a little bit. Oh, wow. Okay, so I say that and then a hand pops up. And it's Megan. Megan's always first to pop up hands, but come on in, Megan.
That was amazing. I really loved it. When you mentioned everybody rolled the dice, I thought, ooh, I ran out the dice and I'm like doing this. I was really like that. You could hear that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. And I'm going, what does that mean? Everybody rolled the dice. What does that mean? Like, is there a myth that goes with it? If you roll the dice on Halloween, what happens?
This is in that last song.
Yes, like everybody roll the dice.
It's about you take your chances. Just taking your chances.
Oh, so I already rolled the dice. Well, let me do that again. Oh, of course. Ooh.
It's not literal, Megan. It's more of it's more of a metaphor.
And what was the movie? The first one when all these guys watched the movie, a black and white movie. What was that movie called?
That was Ed Wood.
Ed Wood?
Yeah, so Ed Wood was a filmmaker. He's the guy who directed Plan 9 from Outer Space, one of the greatest worst movie makers of all time. He made a lot of terrible films, but he was loved. So Ed Wood is a real guy. And so Tim Burton made his biopic. It's a biopic about Ed Wood, and it's just called Ed Wood. But it's a dramatic movie it's kind of based on the life of the filmmaker Ed Wood.
Oh, okay, cool.
Again,
how many British people sang in the Halloween song? That one.
How many
British people, like the pumpkin song? There was, yeah.
Oh, lots of voices in there. Do you know one of the voices? Do you know who does the voice of Sally in The Nightmare Before Christmas?
Oh,
I do.
Oh, you know Amy?
Yeah, yeah.
Sock it to us. Come on.
No, well, I was surprised when I found out because it's O'Hara.
Yeah, Catherine O'Hara.
Oh,
again from Beetlejuice
and Beetlejuice and yep.
Wow.
And she also does one of the three little minion-y characters who go off and snip 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 whatever. The Oogie Boogie's henchmen. She also does one of the henchmen. Yeah, with Paul Rubin, Pee Wee Herman.
Paul Rubin.
Is also one of the little henchmen. And that the Pee Wee Herman film was also a Tim Burton movie.
Oh,
Pee Wee
my
Herman?
goodness.
What? Yeah,
I have that on VHS.
You got the VHS?
I have the VHS.
Now that's dating yourself.
Yeah.
Got the 8-track of the soundtrack.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Megan.
My dad actually was given to him a long time ago a Pee Wee Herman doll.
Oh,
that
nice.
is probably worth a lot of money these days. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But it's like, I don't know, 24 inches. It's quite big.
Nice.
And skinny in the gray suit. And what they did was they wrapped Pee Wee Herman's head in gauze with a little bit of fake blood on it and wrapped his arm. And, because my dad had, I think, fallen off a motorcycle or something. And it was the tequila song and Pee Wee getting on the motorcycle. And so it was a joke gift. But so they bought this doll and they wrapped it up like he had fallen off the motorcycle and gave it to my dad. So
very nice.
For years in my house, this Pee Wee Herman doll sat on a shelf and it was kind of creepy. It's porcelain Pee Wee Herman doll. It's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, another great Tim Burton film that you're like, oh really? That's Tim? Yeah, I guess that was Tim Burton. There are a couple of those that even Batman, very, very cool film. And at the time, I obviously recognize it as Tim Burton, even though he was pretty young. It was still you know, we didn't have quite the understanding of who Tim Burton was going to become at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But you forget, you know, how many movies Tim Burton has made over the years in these slightly different genres. You know, some of them a lot. You know,
has he done any series stuff? You know, some of these big directors go to do, you know, mini series and things like that, especially now with streaming platforms.
Well, Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not sure how much of that is. It's a Tim Burton production,
yeah.
I think, but I'm not sure how much of that he directed himself or just designed, or I can't remember off the top of my head. But that's definitely definitely a Tim Burton thing.
Yeah. Again, I've not seen that. I should probably I love the Addams Family.
Yeah.
I thought Wednesday might have been a little too teeny for me, but maybe it's not.
Yeah, I watched that with my teenagers, and even they were like, "This is a little teeny." Like,
yeah.
You know, yeah.
Maybe, I mean, lots of people love it, but you know,
yeah.
Maybe you got to be in a different headspace for it.
That's right. That's right.
I don't know. Yeah. Do you have a favorite Tim Burton of all time?
I mean, the Nightmare Before Christmas is probably the one that I watch most regularly because you know, every season that's an easy yes.
Yeah.
Who wants to watch that? Yes. Like I'm in. I'll watch that. I mean, Ed Wood is really quite a moving movie. And I also have a thing for old black and white films. Not necessarily the same. I'm more of a detective kind of like film noir guy, but the idea of paying homage by making your own like making a B movie about B movie makers, like I just find that so heartwarming, and like as a creative I can really get behind that. Like that sounds quite joyous to me. So yeah, I have a soft spot for Ed Wood as well, but it's not one that I watch with any regularity.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think I probably watch Nightmare Before Christmas at least once a year on a fairly regular basis. But I would tell you that if Batman was on TV and I found it, doesn't matter what part of the movie we're in, first 10 minutes, last 10 minutes, I'm watching it.
That's right. What do they call it? It's a remote drop. As soon as it comes on, you drop the remote.
That's right. I'm not channel surfing anymore. I'm watching it.
Yeah.
What was the movie called? Oh my gosh. With Helena Bonham Carter and Johnny Depp, where he's the vampire.
Is that Sleepy Hollow?
No, it's newer than that.
It's not ringing a bell.
I'll have to, it's got a strange name because he's got a strange, his vampire name is strange.
If anyone in the room
I'd have to, if anybody knows what that is.
Who's fast on the Google?
Who's fast on the Google? I'm sure it's a Tim Burton movie because the two of them are in it.
Yeah, if those two are in it, the odds are pretty good.
It's a good chance it's a Tim Burton movie. It's gonna bug me. It'll come to me and then I'll be like, that's what it is.
That's it.
Because the name of the character is weird.
Hi, this is Barbara from New York. It's Dark Shadows.
Dark Shadows?
Mm-hmm. He played the vampire in Dark Shadows. He played Barnaby.
Barnaby! Yeah, that's the character. Dark Shadows. Yeah.
Nicely done.
Nicely done.
Well, I was old enough to remember when Dark Shadows was a TV show.
I didn't know it originated as a TV show.
Yeah.
Barnaby. Yeah.
It was that's like a vampire soap opera. I just have one question. When they mention in the clip from Edward Scissorhands, when they mention, and there's some grapes, was that like a tribute to Gilbert Grape?
Oh, that's interesting. In fact, so that is a like a ceramic statue, like a ceramic art piece of some fake grapes sitting on a shelf, and as he walks by, he kind of taps it with his scissor hands, and he says, "Oh no, those are grapes," which they're not. They're fake. They're fake grapes. Yeah. But an interesting idea, like as a reference to Gilbert Grape, which I wonder where that would have been in the chronology, like where Depp.
That's what I wasn't sure of.
Yeah.
That's a Google
that's
search.
certainly that idea of the little Easter egg, the constant references. More and more filmmakers are doing that.
There's no reason to put that in there. It's so arbitrary.
Yeah. Yeah, why does he walk by and just tap, oh, those are grapes? I wonder if that was an improv moment. Like if you're Johnny Depp and you've got these scissor hands, you're in this space and you're looking around, maybe he just tapped the thing and she's, oh, those are, yeah, maybe, I don't know.
But they're like the only thing on the shelf, aren't they?
Yeah, as he's walking by, it's like the only thing on that particular cabinet or whatever it is. It's a low cabinet.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a Google search for sure.
Yeah. Good catch.
Good catch, Barbara. Huh. There are so many Easter eggs, and I miss so many of them not being able to see them. I did catch one in, well, I don't know if it's an Easter egg. I'm going to call it an Easter egg. In the Beetlejuice movie, which I guess the describer didn't have time for, or they didn't know the reference, because that's also a thing if describers don't know the reference. To the first movie in the second movie, which is in the first movie, the mother, Delia, is this sculpture maker, and she makes really unusual kind of concrete sculptures. Yeah. And in that first movie where they do the dance around the table, which is controlled by Beetlejuice, right? Daylight, come and me one, come home. Her statues come and they wrap themselves around all of her dinner guests at the end of that song. And one of the statues is like a concrete block that kind of looks like a shape of a Christmas tree, and it wraps its arms around one of the guests. I think it actually wraps its arms around Delia and kind of encloses her in. And in the second movie, Delia and Lydia are having a conversation outside of a school that I think is like the Performing Arts Center, by donation of Delia Deeds. Yeah. She's famous. Yes. And that giant sculpture is in the background. And I'm like, is that the sculpture from that? And the only reason I noticed it was because I was in, for the first time ever, a movie theater that had the picture on all three sides of the wall. Ooh. In this movie theater. I don't know what it was called, but it was the only one that had seats available. So it was like surround screen. And it was like right beside me. And it was weird. I don't know that I would do that again, but it was weird. So it was like right within this little patch of like partial that I have. So I saw bits of it. And I'm like, I'm sure that's the thing. And that would have been a really nice reference because it's part of the first movie. And I think there was lots of room there to add that in. But maybe that wasn't recognized by that. Yeah, first.
I mean, you've got to be a fan and someone who has seen the other movie, like the first movie recently. Yeah. Like having that carry over for whatever it's been 30 years.
36 years.
The last movie. Oh my goodness. Really?
Yeah.
Possible?
Really?
My goodness. Yeah. But those kinds of things, as a describer, I've been in that position before where it's like, how can I convey that? Is there anything I can do? And we've talked about this before, like the use of sticky words. Yeah. Try and use sticky words, use a noun or a verb that is, it's just got a quality that is good, so that word is going to stick in the back of your head. Yeah. So that if you're describing something in the first 5 minutes and you use that same word to describe it in the last 5 minutes, you're going to link those two ideas.
Yeah.
36 years apart, though, that would be pretty tricky to use a 30. That's got to be a very sticky word to last for 36 years.
That is very true. It's very true. I don't know. Here's a question for you from a describer's perspective, which is, if you know that you are describing a sequel that is, that far apart, would you personally take the time, if you hadn't seen the first movie, to go watch the first movie?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I would definitely need to do that because I'd want to know. I mean, I get a little obsessive about this stuff, and but I would feel like I can't possibly do that justice without knowing the world.
Yeah.
It is one of the things that I have found frustrating sometimes when I've worked in television. Sometimes you're working with an outfit that gets that, and they're like, we're going to put 3 describers on this one series, and only 3 describers, or 2 or 1, depending on the release schedule, so that it's always done by the same person, so that we can have a consistent, we'll have a Bible for the show, so that all of that language is the same. We're always using the same whatever. It's trickier when it's sequels, because that sometimes moves from company to company, so you can't keep that up. But I remember, for example, I was doing TV description. I was given a single episode of The Family Guy to describe, and it was a Family Guy Star Wars parody episode. And I didn't know Family Guy very well, and I had to somehow manage everything in that episode was both a Family Guy reference and a Star Wars reference.
Right.
And so how, like, it's not the character Stewie, it's not Darth Vader, it's Darth Stewie. So like, I had to find ways, but every like, they were meticulous as creators. Every single, you know, starship or vehicle that anyone flew or used was from the Star Wars universe. And if you're a Star Wars fan, you're watching that and you're sighted, you visually know, oh, that's an X-Wing, or whatever. And so I kind of felt like it was my duty to look it all up. And I got to tell you, that was probably, you know, if you broke my pay down by the hour, that was probably the worst pay I ever received, because I spent like hours and hours and hours researching that stuff. And I don't know if the production company cared. It was just a one-off for them. They gave me this one episode, and I thought, oh, this is killer. But yes, like, I am someone as a describer, I would need to see part 1 if I'm going to describe part 2. It would feel in a funny way dishonest to not do it. But that's a decision that is
every describer has to make.
Yeah, and it's hard to make. You know, you're not getting paid to watch the first one.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky one. It's tricky.
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you from the listener's perspective that it is absolutely noticeable, especially if you're, like you said, a fan of whatever the genre is, or whoever the director is or producer or the content is. And I so appreciate being able to geek out, the fan geek. And that makes me feel so much included, and it makes me feel so cared for by describers when they do that, because I know how much work goes into that, and I know you're not getting paid to go to that effort. And it just keeps making me want to fight, like, you know, for CRTC or whoever it needs to be, for, you know, the pay scale to be equitable, and for these changes that need to be made, so that we in this space get to have an equitable experience as much as possible. You know, you can't replace vision, but as much as possible.
Yeah. I hear you, and I'm glad that it gets noticed. You know, you have to make those choices as someone who's providing the service. You have to make choices that are right for you as an individual, but, you know, remember why we're doing this. We're not doing this for fun, purely for fun. We're doing this because it is, you know, to help and to pitch in and to serve someone else. So, you know, I happen to be, I'm inclined to do it right whenever humanly possible.
Yeah. Very cool. Sounds like this could be a Describers Cafe conversation.
Yeah, there you go.
We should think about that.
Coming up next.
Coming up next. Awesome, JJ. Well, thank you for spending time in the VocalEye Almost Live space. We always love having you here. And I just wish you a happy night, because it's if it's not tomorrow already.
Yeah, we're getting there.
It's getting pretty close to tomorrow for you. So why don't you have yourself a nice, I don't know, hot cup of something and go put your head down somewhere.
I'll be gone now and walk away with my box of.
You know, in 25 minutes it's Halloween, so you can open the box.
Oh, I can open. I'll just stay up for 25 more minutes, then I can open my box of. Everyone will know I'm coming.
Yep. Well, I didn't open my snack either.
Very good.
Still sealed.
We're so good, Amy. So
I
good.
know.
Thanks for having me in this space again. It's been lovely seeing you guys.
Have a good night.
Be well.
VocalEye, vocaleye.ca. Special thanks to our funders, the Canada Council for the Arts, the British Columbia Arts Council, the Province of British Columbia, and the City of Vancouver.